Hello, everybody, and welcome back to British English Pod with me, Lewis. And in this week's episode, we're going to be speaking all about hotels. So I hope you're ready, and then we will kick off. Yes, as I said, this week in class in the British English Immersion Club, what we've been chatting about is, of course, holidays, summer, because we are here right now. We're in the middle or even towards the end of July, and time flies. Time passes so quickly. It feels like yesterday when it was Christmas. And of course, we've had a heat wave for quite a long time here in Europe now. So summer has been around for a long time. But for me, summer doesn't feel like it's properly arrived until I go to Spain and I go to the beach and I'm sunbathing on the beach, going for a dip in the sea, having a cocktail at sunset, and, not working quite as much because I never really take holidays. Of course, I don't really work that much at the weekend, but given that I have lots of amazing students who pay a monthly subscription, I don't want to take time off because I want to give them what they are paying for, which is a safe space where people can practice their English speaking skills whilst working on their slang, phrasal verbs, and expressions. But that being said, in August, I do usually kind of slow down. I don't teach quite as many classes. I reduce a few hours to, try to chill out, recharge my batteries, and come back ready and raring to go in September. Look, I had something in my throat there, but I'm all good. And I'm definitely feeling much better than I did when I was recording the last podcast because my voice was still croaky, it was still very hoarse, and now I feel quite a lot better. I'm back to myself. I have got over that little bit of a cold, tiredness, and a sore throat. So I'm back to my best. But going back to the topic, hotels. Hotels and holiday accommodation is synonymous with holidays. And it's usually the first or the second thing that you start organizing before you go on your jollies. The phrase on your jollies is a very British way of saying on your holidays. Whereas in the United States, they would say on vacation. But we say on holidays or on your jollies if you want to be a little bit more colloquial. But yeah, let me know. What do you book first? Do you book flights first or do you book accommodation first? I think, to be honest, the first thing I usually book when I know I'm going on my jollies is, the flights. And what I do is check websites like Skyscanner. And by checking Skyscanner, I can have a look at the prices and I can, explore the market to see which airline is giving me the best conditions and the best deals. Usually in Europe, it tends to be Ryanair, but Ryanair is not a company that I like. I think I begrudgingly fly with Ryanair just because it is the biggest low-cost airline in Europe. And I think most people agree with this, that we don't like the company, we don't like their ethos, but we do it anyway because the most important thing is saving your pennies and not spending as much money. So the first thing I do when organizing a holiday is book flights. Then as soon as I've got the flights, that's when I'll start exploring accommodation options. And here, usually I use booking.com because I think in the past, Booking was just for hotels. But nowadays, they have branched out and expanded their offer to also include hostels and Airbnbs. Well, tourist apartments. Because the other app that people use is Airbnb. And I feel like I've got to say this because I remember when my future brother-in-law from Seville mentioned the words abenebe. Abenebe. So, yeah, abenebe. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? I've got no idea what you're on about. And of course, what he had done is pronounce the app and company in Spanish, 100%. So instead of saying Airbnb, he said Aveneve. Anyway, that's just a little funny anecdote that I thought I'd share with you. But I used to like Airbnb. Nowadays, I think I've got a bit bored of it and fed up of it. And most of the time, I prefer to stay in a hotel rather than a tourist apartment, unless I'm staying for a prolonged amount of time. If I know I'm going to be in a place for more than 2 weeks, then that's when I would prefer a tourist apartment because you can cook, you can clean, you can do the laundry, and you can feel like you're at home a little bit more than staying in a hotel. So, to conclude, I prefer hotels, but only for a shorter stay. If I'm staying somewhere for longer, that's when Airbnb comes into play. And that's when Airbnb comes in handy, as we saw last week with the podcast about my stag do and a little bit about university. And it's funny that I was talking about my stag do last week because this week, literally 5 minutes ago, my fiance has just gone on yet another hen do. Yet another one. And that's why I'm taking advantage of this little bit of, well, peace and quiet and loneliness as well to record a podcast. And after I record this podcast, I'm going to record next week's podcast. And I'm going to try to get ahead of a lot of recording and podcasts so that in August, I don't have to worry about it as much. So the aim for this weekend and this week is to work overtime and to go above and beyond, to go the extra mile, to create and edit and schedule the majority of my content for the month of August. But anyway, let's get started properly with the topic. I've already mentioned a few things, so I'll try not to repeat myself. But the first question that I'm going to ask myself, and I would like you to respond in the comments, is what was the last hotel you stayed in? What was the last hotel you stayed in? Do you remember? Because I remember perfectly. It was last Sunday night. Because, as I mentioned in the Lost podcast, I went on my stag do, I stayed in a hostel, but then the night before flying back, we checked in at an airport hotel, and it was quite nice. It was quite big. It was quite spacious. It was easy to check in and check out. And we had a nice TV. We had a nice bathroom. I think there was breakfast included as well. But given our flight was at the crack of dawn at 6:30 in the morning, well, we couldn't make the most of it. So that was the last hotel that I stayed in. Now, how about we continue with some more questions? And in today's podcast, I'm going to use quite a lot of common phrasal verbs. I've already mentioned check in and check out, which are completely linked to the topic. But number one, how do you usually choose a hotel? Well, I usually choose a hotel thanks to my fiance, she is usually the one who'll start looking before me, and it's something that she enjoys doing. She really loves having a look on booking.com and, editing the filter to put 3-star, 4-star, 5-star hotel, and to edit the budget as well of how much money we are willing to spend. Then, if we're going to a hot country, we need to make sure that we have air conditioning and, if possible, a swimming pool. To be honest, I don't really care if there is a gym because I'm not going to be working out whilst I'm on holiday. And a big bonus is when they have free breakfast, some kind of free breakfast buffet. So we usually tick that box as well. And then we'll have a look at the reviews, and not only the reviews, but the star rating. And these reviews are made up of different criteria. So you'll have Wi-Fi, cleanliness, location, activities, and so on and so forth. And then from all of that information, that's when we will make a choice. Usually that choice is focused quite a lot on how expensive it is. So if we see a hotel for 700 euros and we see another one for 500 euros and they seem to be a very similar quality, well, it'd be silly not to go for the cheaper one because that extra 200 euros, well, that pays for 2 very, very nice meals. And that is how my brain thinks. Now, number 2, what's the nicest hotel you've ever stayed in? Well, I think I've stayed in quite a lot of nice hotels, but not that many that were really luxurious. Last summer, along the coast in Spain, I stayed in a very nice 4 stars or maybe 5-star hotel, and it came with your breakfast included and dinner included. And it was all inclusive. So we could drink as much as we wanted whenever we wanted. And this is a big plus. This is a game changer. And it had lots of different pools. They had a live band on or a different artist, which kind of rotated, and they played at around sunset. So I felt like I was living life. I felt like, I want to do this all the time. I want to live like this all the time. So that's one nice hotel that I stayed in relatively recently. And another one would be, I'm remembering now that when we were traveling around Asia, Southeast Asia, we stayed in a really, really nice hotel just on an island off Bali. And it wasn't so luxurious, but it was quite like hippie. It was quite trendy, where they had a main island and swimming pool in the middle, and they had a bar in the middle of this island, and the rooms were huge, and we were just a few steps away from our own private beach. And I remember it was a bargain. I think we stayed there for 4 nights, and it cost us like 100 euros. So we were like, again, should we live here forever? But we didn't, unfortunately. So those are probably the nicest hotels that I've ever stayed in. Question number 3. I'm going to stop sharing because, it might be nicer to see me. I'm not sure. Let me know yourself. Question number 3 is, would you rather have a balcony or a large bathroom? This for me is easy. I would rather have a balcony. A balcony makes such a difference. If you're just waiting for your significant other to get changed and you want to chill and read or listen to some music or a podcast, it's nice to have fresh air. And if you don't fancy going out at night, you can play cards and have a chat on the balcony. It becomes an extra living space, which gives you a little bit more freedom, I think. And as long as you've got a bathroom with all the necessary amenities, a toilet, a sink, and a shower, then it doesn't really matter if it's big or small. That's what I say, at least. And number 4, I briefly brought up breakfast buffets and how much I love them. But what's your favorite thing to eat at a hotel breakfast buffet? I don't know what my favorite thing is because it depends. But usually, if I've got a breakfast buffet and you have a really good spread of plenty of options, I kind of do the following. So I will start with the heaviest things first. The most filling things. So I'd begin with the typical kind of English breakfast vibe. So I'd go for my sausages, my mushrooms, my eggs, my toast, my hash browns. Sometimes you have some extra tomatoes. Maybe I'll even get some kind of omelette made for me as well. Anything that's filling and cooked is what I tend to begin with. Then after that, I can eat a lot. So after that, I'll probably go for some kind of like toast sandwich. If I'm in Spain, I quite like to have some toast with olive oil, salt, tomato, and some like Iberian ham. That's lovely. Or just another cured meat sandwich or variation of some toast with something. I know you can always get cereal, but for me, cereal is like what I would have in normal life because cereal is quite affordable and it's quite easy to have if you're in a rush. So sometimes between classes, I'll have a bowl of muesli or some kind of like, fiberful breakfast cereal. So at a hotel, I never really go for that. But then, after filling myself up on these 2 savory courses, that's when my sweet tooth comes into action. And I think what I do is then I go for all of the fruit. So if you have melon, watermelon, banana, apple, peach, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, I will try to fill a whole bowl or plate with one of each of the fruit. And of course, I'll have some fruit juice as well. So I'm on a bit of a sugar high. And then once I have finished all of that off, that's when I'll have a look to see if there are any like nice desserts. Some like chocolate croissant, some kind of cake. You get the drill. And of course, I'll have a couple of cups of coffee. Maybe starting with an espresso and then moving on to a cappuccino, or vice versa. Amazing. I'm hungry now. I'm not going to eat for another few hours, but after describing that, I wish I were in a big hotel, just about to walk down from my room and see the amazing options before me to really pig out. But maybe in a few weeks. And another question. Have you ever complained about a hotel? Have I ever complained about a hotel? I don't think I have, Maybe I've written a review or I've given like less stars than I would usually, again on Booking or Google, etc. And I think people I've been with, if I've been with my in-laws or my own family, they've sometimes made a slight complaint, but I've never really done it myself. And even when I went to the beach a couple of months ago with some friends, they forgot to clean the apartment. So, of course, when we arrived, we had to call the landlord, landlady, or hotel manager. And, well, they came and cleaned it up, and we tried to get a discount. But I didn't actually do it myself. I'm a bit shy when it comes to complaining. Maybe I should be braver about it, but I'm not very brazen in that regard. Cool. Now, let's keep going. And I've already mentioned my preference between Airbnb and a hotel, so I can skip that slide. And what I'm going to do now is read a little bit of a story to you. And this story includes, I don't even know how many phrasal verbs. It's like 25. The list is endless. It's never ending. So I'm going to read half of the story to you now, and then just quickly recap the phrasal verbs. Then I'll read the second half and recap those phrasal verbs. And if you are not watching this video right now would be the moment, I would say, to, have a look whilst I read. Because then you can see all of these common phrasal verbs are in bold, so they stand out a lot more. So, story time! Woo woo! Last month, my partner and I decided to get away for a long weekend on the coast. We'd come across a beautiful boutique hotel online, but we knew places like that often book up quickly. So we made our reservation several months in advance. On the day of the trip, we headed off early in the morning. We finally turned up at the hotel. We first dropped off our luggage before parking the car. Then we queued up at reception because several other guests had shown up at the same time. The receptionist asked us to fill out a registration form, and while she was preparing our room keys, we looked around the hotel. It had a lovely lounge, a spa, and a restaurant overlooking the sea. Beautiful. When she handed us our key cards, she reminded us to hold on to them because we'd need them to access the lifts after midnight. Before going upstairs, we asked for a room with a balcony. Luckily, they had one available, and our new room looked out onto the beach. We moved into the room straight away and quickly settled in. Our 2 large suitcases took up quite a bit of space, but the room was spacious enough that it wasn't a problem. Excellent. That is the first half. So now, let me recap the meanings of these phrasal verbs. Get away is escape. Come across is find by chance or meet by chance. Book up is to get booked completely, kind of like sell out. Head off is to go. You can head out, you can head off, you can head away, but head is just another way of saying to go. Turn up is to appear or arrive. Drop off is when you take and leave someone or something. Queue up is to make a line, to make a queue. Show up is the same as turn up, arrive, appear. Fill out is to complete a form. Look around is to explore a place. Hold onto is not letting go, to keep something, not leave something. Ask for, simple enough, is like requesting. If a room looks out onto, it has that view. It looks out onto the sea. Move into is usually used when it comes to buying or renting a house, but I suppose you could also use it when you're staying in a room. You moved into the room. You started living there. Then settle in is to adapt and feel comfortable. Take up in this scenario is to take or occupy a lot of space. Okay. That is the recap of those phrasal verbs. Now, part 2. So I'm going to continue reading and then review the phrasal verbs once again, and then we'll get back to some chit-chat. A reminder, if you like this video, if you like my podcast, I appreciate it so much if you leave a like to support what I do and the information I give you for free. So thank you once again, and I love you lots. All right, let's get going. That evening, we picked up some information about local attractions from reception before going out for dinner. Throughout our stay, the staff really looked after us. Whenever we had a question, they were happy to help. The only problem was that the hotel had run out of extra pillows, and the Wi-Fi kept getting cut off, which was a little frustrating. Fortunately, the manager quickly sorted out the internet issue, so we didn't have to put up with it for long. On our second day, we heard that another guest had had to call off their holiday because of a family emergency, which was a shame. We also discovered that the hotel had recently been taken over by a new company, which explained why everything looked so modern. When it was finally time to leave, we carefully went through our bill before paying. We were happy to pay for the minibar because we definitely made good use of it. We actually ended up extending our stay by one extra night because we were enjoying ourselves so much. On our final morning, we woke up early to watch the sunrise from our balcony before checking out. As we drove home, we both agreed it had been one of the best hotel stays we'd ever had, and we were already talking about where we'd get away to next. Beautiful. A wonderful story. Now, let me go over these phrasal verbs. So, pick up is to collect. It could be a thing or it could be a person. Look after, take care of. Run out of is using everything. Cut off is to disconnect. Sort out, to resolve. Put up with, to tolerate. Call off, cancel. Take over is when you become the boss. You take control. In this scenario, it was talking about a company taking over another. If you go through, it depends on the context. But in this context, it was all about reviewing. We went through the information. Pay for, easy enough. It's the same, pay for. I don't think there's really a synonym of pay for. Then end up is to do in the end. Wake up, become awake. Check out is when you make sure everything's okay before leaving. But also, if you're checking somewhere out, you're having a look at it. And lastly, once again, if you are getting away, you are escaping. So, what did you think of the story? And what did you think of all of these wonderful, beautiful phrasal verbs? I feel like in class and on my podcast, I've been reviewing phrasal verbs quite a lot. So let me know if all of this is paying off, if all of this practice of phrasal verbs is actually helping you, because the more you see phrasal verbs, the easier it becomes. 100,000%. Now, what I want to speak to you about now is about a really cool series. So, it is a series that I think I watched last year, and the theme tune, the song, is so catchy. When you start watching this series, which I highly recommend, by the way, you'll start also humming along and singing along to the tune. The series is, of course, called The White Lotus. The White Lotus. And let me know. Have you watched it? Have you watched the series? If you have, I hope you enjoy it and you see eye to eye with me and you have the same opinion that it is great. But for those of you who haven't watched it, I'm going to explain it a little bit. And I think it's available to watch on HBO or HBO Max, but you know, there's always a way to find a series. So, The White Lotus is a dark comedy drama about wealthy guests and the staff who serve them at a luxury resort. Each season takes place at a different White Lotus hotel in a beautiful holiday destination. But beneath the stunning scenery are secrets, privilege, power struggles, and, eventually, a mysterious death, or multiple even. And at the moment, there are 3 seasons, and I think the 4th season is going to come out at the end of this year, I believe. Season 1 is shot and based in Hawaii, and it is a group of rich holiday makers who arrive at a luxury resort in Hawaii. And their relationships begin to unravel as tensions between family members grow. And there's also tensions between newlyweds and, of course, the hotel staff. And the season explores wealth, entitlement, race, and class, building towards a shocking death that is teased in the opening episode. And I have to say, the first season, I didn't mind it, but I didn't really get into it. It didn't blow me away. So, if you've only watched the first season but not the second or the third, then stick with it. Give it another go. Give it another chance. Because season 2 is set in Sicily. And the focus shifts to love, marriage, infidelity, sex, and money. Several couples and a group of friends question whether they really know the people closest to them, and the mystery revolves around multiple deaths discovered at the start of the series. I'm not giving away a lot there, but check it out. I think the second season is my favorite so far. And the third season is in Thailand. And it takes place at a luxury wellness resort in Thailand and explores themes of spirituality, self-improvement, family dynamics, and the search for meaning, while still mixing satire, uncomfortable humor, and suspense. As with the previous seasons, someone dies, but the journey to discovering who and why is the real story. And why do people like this series? Why has it got so many good reviews? Well, you have beautiful luxury hotel settings. It has sharp and awkward humor. You have some brilliantly uncomfortable social interactions and a clever satire of wealth and privilege and murder mysteries at the same time. And all of the characters are very flawed, but interesting and fascinating to watch as well. So that's enough about The White Lotus, but it is 100% a series I recommend watching, and it's not your typical thing. That's the thing I like about it. They thought outside of the box to come up with the idea. Because most series nowadays, they're quite similar. They follow the same plot, the same story. Whereas with The White Lotus, I feel like it's different and it's mixing things up, adding more variety, which is probably what we need in life. Maybe you've heard me say the expression before, variety is the spice of life. Now, a few more questions. I'm going to answer them nice and quickly. So, do you read reviews before booking? What I do is I read the rating out of 10, and then after that, I'll just check to see a few reviews, a few of the more recent ones. So I'll just make sure that nobody's saying anything that I need to look out for. For example, if I'm going to be working and depending on the Wi-Fi, I want to double check that the Wi-Fi is good. That's probably the main thing I would actually read. The second question. What's the first thing you do when you enter a hotel room? Maybe I'm getting more mature as I get older, because nowadays the first thing I do when I enter a hotel room, apart from maybe go for a wee, is unpack. In the past, I used to just leave my backpack or my suitcase and live out of it. But nowadays, knowing how creased my t-shirts and shirts get, I'll unpack and I'll hang up my shirts on a hanger to just at least limit the amount of creases I have. And of course, I'll check out the balcony to see the views, but that goes without saying. The third question, is having a good mattress important to you? And a mattress is, the structure of your bed where you sleep. I don't know how important it is for me to have a good mattress. I think I'm quite flexible. But a good pillow, on the other hand, I think is more important. Because there are times when you stay in a double bed and you have one long pillow. So you're sharing the pillow with the person you're sleeping with. And then if one person moves a lot, your pillow's going to be moving in the middle of the night. And you feel like you're kind of like interfering with them, and you might be annoying them as well. So then that makes you go into your own head and think, oh, they're going to be angry in the morning because they're going to have a terrible night's sleep. So pillows are definitely important. And what I want is individual pillows. And for me, I only need one. I know there are certain people who always say, I need 2 pillows, or I need a memory foam pillow. Meh. I don't really care. I just want one soft, nice pillow. The mattress, who cares? Now, the fourth question. Have you ever ordered room service? I'm not sure I have, I'm trying to think. I feel like maybe I ordered room service once when I was in the United States, staying in hotels as I traveled around and coached soccer. I think I might have done it then because maybe the bar was already closed or there were no restaurants available. But I definitely haven't ordered room service anytime in the recent past. Nope. And to be honest, I don't really like the idea of eating in bed. Like, if you're ordering a saucy pasta or a burger, you might make a mess. And then what if you get some tomato sauce on your nice white sheets? You're not going to want to sleep there anymore. And something I notice about room service and hotels that offer room service is that then you'll see that they'll sometimes leave this tray with all of the leftover food and cutlery just outside of the room. So if you're walking past, it looks a bit disgusting and it might be a bit smelly. So room service, I don't get it. I'm not buying it. Now, the fifth one. Have you ever stayed somewhere that was much noisier than expected? Yes. I could probably tell different stories here. Of course, I've stayed in hostels, and hostels are always going to be noisy. So they usually live up to expectations. But I remember staying in a hotel in Thailand on the famous full moon island, which is Koh Phangan. I think? I don't know. But you probably know what I'm talking about. That in Thailand, a lot of backpackers go to this full moon party, which is on the beach with lots of bright fluorescent colors, lots of partying, 100%. And I remember when we went there, we stayed in a hotel and it was a little bit dodgy. I didn't feel 100% comfortable there. But it wasn't like a party hotel and it wasn't a hostel either. So you would expect it to be quite quiet. And this is a bit of a maybe sad or disturbing story. But I remember hearing a couple having an argument and hearing, screaming and shouting. And I remember being really scared and wondering, what should we do? Should we do something? Should we call the police? Because it seemed pretty serious. But we were in a foreign country and we had no idea what could have been happening. But it seemed like they were having a pretty intense argument. And I kind of wanted to go out and knock on the door and see if everything was all right. In the end, maybe I chickened out. I'm not sure. But you could hear that it was not a normal argument. Or at least, if it was, that's not a normal relationship. And after a while, they were quiet. We didn't hear anything the next day. So I guess it was nothing. But that hotel was much noisier than expected and in a bad way. Not like people laughing and joking. It was people screaming and shouting. So, ugh, not nice. Not nice. And sorry for sharing that with you, but it just came to me. And this is what this podcast is all about. It's about me being real, answering questions in real time, so you can have lots and lots of listening practice about so many questions, giving my own experiences. And, well, if it comes into my head, if it pops into my head, then I'm going to say it. So that way you get to know me. Now, one more question. What do you think of all-inclusive resorts? Now, I know I mentioned earlier that last summer I stayed in an amazing hotel with free breakfast and dinner. The lunch wasn't included, to be honest, but all-inclusive resorts, for me, can be a bit boring. I like the novelty for a weekend, but staying in an all-inclusive resort an entire week, it just seems too repetitive. Because part of traveling for me is going out and exploring, and in particular, exploring different restaurants and bars. So I love it when I've got breakfast included, because that way you can kick off the day very well, full of energy. You can kind of skip lunch as well, or just have a very light lunch. And then you choose a really nice restaurant for dinner. So all-inclusive resorts, usually I associate with young families to make it easier if you've got young children. Because of course, if everything is included, then you don't have to worry. You don't have to panic. And you can actually enjoy being a parent, not having to worry about your kids. So for those reasons, I get it. But for me, at least at the moment, I like breakfast included. If they can include drinks, perfect. But that usually doesn't happen. And also, I do think that in one way or another, by paying for all inclusive, they're already factoring in how much you're going to consume. So maybe it's not actually that much cheaper unless you go all out and get hammered all day and eat everything you see. But when you do that after a couple of days, you feel very lethargic and you feel very bloated. And then you don't have energy to do anything else. So, nah, I'm not such a big fan of all-inclusive resorts or hotels. Cool. I think we can wrap it up there. It's probably about a good time to wrap it up because it's very bright outside. And sometimes when I'm recording, looking at my phone and my laptop with very bright sun outside, I feel almost like a vampire in daytime. I can't keep my eyes open. So what I'm going to do now is quickly edit this podcast. Whilst it's being uploaded, I'm going to go for a run. And by the time I come back for a run, it should already be finished. And then, if I feel up for it, I'm going to record another podcast. So, thank you so much for watching or listening. Tell me about the last hotel you stayed in, and I'll see you just in a few days. So, lots of love. Bye-bye.